My terrarium obsession began more than a decade ago, and mistakes were made. So many mistakes. And through these mistakes, I was able to learn quite a bit about not only terrarium care, but the evolution of aesthetics. After all, these are living, breathing, and growing pieces of art. Welcome to the microverse. A lot of us start off by putting things in a glass box and seeing what sticks. We also tend to leave things as they are, mostly because we have things to do and life gets too busy. However, there are things you can do before you even start building to ensure this slice of nature will continue to grow, thrive, and remain aesthetically pleasing after years of growth. This is why I am not a big fan of sealed terrariums. It's a fun experiment, but when you don't know how things grow in a limited space, you very quickly get a jar of incoherent textures and colors. Before we dive into the specifics, here are a few things terrariums absolutely need in order to thrive. A false bottom. This is the area at the bottommost of the terrarium, adding a layer of gravel to act as a buffer between accumulated water and the substrate. Laca and lava rocks are the best for this, as they also serve as breeding ground for the cleanup crew as well as beneficial bacteria that work with your substrate to keep the closed system healthy, much like the nitrogen cycle within aquariums. Don't let the false bottom dry out. This will kill the bacteria that is colonizing it. Cleanup crew. What makes a terrarium bioactive is the presence of microfauna, fungi, and bacteria that process decaying matter, preventing it from rotting, and fertilizing the soil in the process. Life forms such as springtails and isopods are perfect for this. Being detritivores by nature, they will immensely aid in having a healthy substrate and thus a healthy terrarium. Aeration. Stagnant air and water are main factors that will turn a terrarium into mush within months. Providing aeration helps fauna and flora breathe properly. Nature always has a degree of aeration, and all the life forms there thrive. So it's unreasonable for us to expect that life forms such as flora and fauna would thrive in a completely closed, stagnant, non-aerated system, which is another reason why I dislike sealed terrariums. Now that you understand these concepts, let's get into the meat and potatoes of terrascaping principles. Secret number 7. Layout and vision. Before making any final decisions where anything will go, I like to play around with my hardscape. I always say wiggle your hardscape. Flip the rock or driftwood. Move it to the other side. See how it looks in every possible orientation imaginable. Once you have your main hardscape roughly where you want it, start adding some more detail and really visualize the end result. Where plants are going, how moss will look covering certain areas. And if you're building this for a pet, please consider that pet's preferences. Does it like ledges? Does it like hiding places? If you have a basic concept or idea, keep that in mind as well while placing the main piece of hardscape. For example, in the terrarium that won the Terrascape Showdown, I knew I wanted an empty area in the back to give continuity and add depth to the scape. So I situated the main piece around the intended gap so that it framed the empty space. This drew the eyes in and places the viewer in a central place from which their eyes can wander and explore this fairy tale in a box. Secret number 6. The golden rule.
You've heard of the golden rule, haven't you? Whoever has the gold makes the rules.
When doing both hardscape as well as softscape, do keep in mind Fibonacci's sequence, the rule of thirds, the golden ratio. This means to never place a main focal point in the center of the build, scape, or painting for that matter. A good thing to do is to whip out your phone camera and make sure it has that grid. Center the phone with the enclosure, and this will give you a good idea of this principle. You want to essentially place the main pieces of hardscape or softscape around these lines, or at the intersections of said lines. This really helps in giving a flow to your builds and naturalizing your scapes, as well as guiding the viewer's eyes to where you would like it to go. Secret number 5. Scale. Scale refers to the size of the elements within the space you have available. You wouldn't want to put a plant that's going to overgrow the space, or a ginormous piece of driftwood that would make it virtually impossible to look at anything else. A good sense of scale is integral to creating a visually coherent and aesthetically pleasing scape. Choose materials that work with the scale of the space that you have available. If you notice, the top 3 terrariums in the Terrascape Showdown all had a pleasing sense of scale. They all look like someone plucked a scene out of nature and put it in a box. Choose plants, hardscape, and detail elements based on the scale of the terrarium. Based on the size, there is a maximum where it looks weird if you go past it, and if you make it too small of a scale, it tends to look busy and incoherent, especially when it grows in. One could benefit from some visualization of the grown-out scape. How big is this plant gonna get? How fast do these flora grow? Is the moss gonna overtake the hardscape? That happens, you know. If you really want to refine your builds, study some aquascaping concepts. There is a great lecture at Green Aqua done by the extremely talented, award-winning aquascaper Josh Sim. This one lecture has influenced how I scape, be it aqua, terra, or the in-betweens. You might also benefit from observing the works of the legendary aquascaper, the late, the great Takashi Amano. Secret number 4. Contrast. By this I mean everything. Big, small, highlights, shadows, near, far, wherever you are. Excuse me, I've been in Canada. This happens sometimes. Ooh, by the way, my terrarium supervisor says that 90% of viewers aren't even subscribed, so if you want to help me keep my job, please consider subscribing to the channel. This will do us a big motivate, and get this guy to stop hounding me.
That would be great. Okay.
Building in a variety of visual contrasts can help add that little extra intrigue to your scape. Some of my earlier work has been monotonous, and just thinking about contrasting ideas really helps when planning out a scape. Having the lighting you will be using for that scape can help greatly. As you are building, you can test the light placement. This will give you an idea of how shadows can dramatically change the feel of a build. If you are using a certain type of rock or driftwood, it would be a good idea to break a bigger piece so you can add the big-small contrast to your hardscape. Secret number 3. As above, so below. If you add a type of hardscape to the background, make sure that element is present within the floor of the terrarium as well. If you add a plant to the right side, add some of the same plant to the left side. This does 2 things. First, it gives you multiple places and angles from which to view a particular item, be it plant, rock, or piece of wood. Adding some of the elements to all sides and areas really helps bring the whole scape together. And second, it makes the scape look natural. Nature doesn't really scape with one plant or element on one side but not the other. If, let's say, a fern is present in an area, it would have sent runners, and within weeks there would be others popping up left, right, and center. So if you add a patch of moss to the background, throw some of that same moss on the understory. Put moss everywhere, actually. Secret number 2. You guys remember in the moss video? Where it sounded like this was a very, very secret bathroom session. Secret number 2. Empty space. If everything is busy all the time, it tends to confuse and discombobulate the viewer. The best scapes on the planet, in my opinion, help guide your eyes as you view them. The perfect situation is where your eyes are guided to the main focal points before dispersing into the finer details of the build. It also helps give the eyes a bit of a break from the busyness of flora and hardscape. Empty space was actually the focal point of the championship-winning terrarium, and I utilize empty space in almost all of my builds. A good example of too full can be seen in this terrarium from the competition. Even though there was a lot of details added, one cannot appreciate the detail due to the sheer amount and variety of things to look at. In scaping, sometimes less is more. Things will grow out anyway, and you can always add elements after the build is done. So don't rush to make the finished product immediately. Nature gives life forms some space and time to grow, and you should too. Secret number 1. I have the humor of a 6-year-old. Secret number 1. Delving into the details. After everything including plants go in, and the scape is completely done, that's when you add the little details. The smaller varieties of rocks, wood, twigs, botanicals, plants, and mosses. It's best to use the same materials that were used in the main scape. If you use dragonstone, add smaller pieces near the main piece. This occurs a lot in nature, where weather and erosion will roughen up and break a piece of rock, or wood, or what have you. Waiting till the end also means you can conceal imperfections, hide sealant or superglue, and add that little extra oomph to your build. And since you let me talk your ear off about the majestical world of terrascaping, here is an even secreter secret than the other secrets. Feel free to fail. Renowned as the best teacher, nothing beats good old-fashioned failure. If you aren't sure how something will work, try it anyway, do it anyway, try a bunch of times. Things tend to click when you go with the flow of the build. Change things, and if a couple of months go by and you can see all of the things you could have done, don't be afraid to add or remove things. And if you still aren't happy after that, you can just rip it all out and start all over again. Yay, new scape. And if you ever feel like the build is not going how you would like it to, you can take a break, go for a walk, watch something that will inspire you, or even get some sleep before going back to scaping. As one of my favorite artists would say, as long as you're learning, you're not failing. May the moss be with you.